Food for body and mind, innovations in functional ingredients with a mission to boost mental and physical well-being. Here to talk about it, we have Bill Liao, General Partner at SOSV. We have Giancarlo Addario, Principal at 5 Seasons Ventures. We have Netta Granot, a CEO at EXOSOMM. We have Shiri Ranot, VP Marketing and Business Development at Incredo. And the panel moderator. A lot always depends on the panel discussion facilitator, as we all know. So let's welcome them. No pressure, no pressure. Let's welcome them all with the panel moderator, Jaleh Daie, Partner at Aurora Equity. Applause, please. I'm sure I have committed a grave sin of mispronouncing at least half the names of our speakers. Enjoy this discussion. Have fun.
Thanks.
Well, good morning. Can you all hear me? Okay, so it's always hard to get things started as first panel, so let's get prepared for that. So as you already know, we are going to be talking about food as a source of health and well-being, to just put it under the broad umbrella of food as medicine. And we have some great panelists who are experts in the area, so we're going to have a good conversation. To just bring a little bit of context to the conversation, the concept of food as medicine or basis for health is an ancient concept and philosophy. Hippocrates basically said, let thy food be thy medicine, your food, thy food. So I think what we are going to do today is going to have Hippocrates meet high tech. Is that okay? So we're going to be talking about the incredible amount of food innovation that we are seeing, the very exciting excitements and advancements that we see in nutritional sciences, and the fact that we are beginning to really accept that body and mind are one continuum, the axis of body and mind. And so the food is not only important for our physical well-being, but are also for mental health. It's a broad subject, as you all know. We only have 30 minutes or so, so we would just touch very superficially on most of the topics. But we'll do our best. And I think it's a good omen that we are setting the tone as the first panel. I hope that many of the other panels will also touch on the subject of food as medicine and health and well-being. So let me get us started by simply asking a sort of a general question, and that is, what is your perception, understanding, hopes, fears about this new emerging trend, and do you think it's going to have a staying power? So let's talk about it. Let's start with my first next to me, Netta. So what is your sense of this space? What is emerging? What should we be excited about? And are there anything that is not there and should be there, we should be looking at?
So, hi. First of all, I will maybe tell who I am.
Yes,
so just you will have it in the context.
Yes.
So my background is in food technology and business, both of them experience. And now I'm a CEO of a startup that developing a nutritional supplement, a bioactive protein that have the efficacy to treat inflammation in our cells. And we know that most of the diseases that the Western world is sick by, or even death, is related to the inflammatory in the cells. And I think in that mean of food as medicine, our big challenge is to get consumer and also the physician trust that food can do good things to the body as well as drugs. Because I think this health area is dominated by mainly pharma manufacturers and companies. And the food supplement, we believe that is really good for us as a whole, physically and mentally. But there is forces in this arena that keeps us a bit delay, and we need to fight differently maybe, and getting more trust about our efficacy and trustworthiness of the products.
Bill, please tell us what you do, and then perhaps dive into the question about the emerging trends you see.
Sure. I'm general partner at SOSV and co-founder of IndieBio, so do a lot of biotech and food startups there. I'm also chair of the board of Kitua Fund, which is explicitly a food as medicine fund. Together we have something like $500 million in dry powder available to invest, and we do early stage stuff. But please don't come up to me with something that's not relevant to either of those hypotheses. One piece of advice, do your research on the investor before you send your deck or hassle them, because, you know, word gets around. I'm very excited about a few things. When it comes to, you know, food as medicine, like the opposite is food as poison. And there's a lot of data coming out about hyper-processed foods and ultra-processed foods and what they do to the body over time. And it's not good enough to just say, oh, eat as part of a balanced diet. Where's the other balance coming from? And so we're learning tons and tons about microbiome, about gut health, about microbiome-brain access. We're learning a lot about data. AI is teaching us a lot of stuff. You know, there's little robots now that are sampling the microbiome in the middle of the gut and not just in the feces. So there's a whole lot of data that we're getting. We're getting wearables. I mean, I've got a blood pressure monitor, a glucose monitor on right now. You know, there's all sorts of fantastic data that's coming. I can actually see that salt doesn't affect my blood sugar or my blood pressure. And yet there are conversations about salt being terrible for your blood pressure and as a result also affecting your blood sugar. No, doesn't do a thing. On the other hand, quite a lot of the fibers out there that are supposedly not affect your blood sugar do. So, you know, resistant dextrin, yeah, that gives me a blood sugar spike. Some people it does, it doesn't. The specificity of understanding our personal health also in context of all these wonderful new innovations is great. And the other thing, the last thing I would say that's exciting is climate change is actually driving us to reinvent our food system, whether we like it or not. And so if we're going to have to reinvent our food system, we might as well do it the right way this time with modern data.
Okay. Is there anything that you would like to see happen that you don't see, we are not thinking about, we are not doing, we are not focusing on?
Well, yeah. I mean, most of the startups here are going to face scale up. And scale up when you're manufacturing primary goods is not cheap. And there is actually not enough capital, anywhere near enough capital to build the $100 million scale-up factory that you're going to need. And this is where you need governments, you need pension funds, you need, you know, sovereign wealth funds to step up. Now, in Ireland, the Irish Strategic Investment Fund has stepped up and they are doing a large-scale fermentation support fund. We need this everywhere. You know, there's a lot of steel that has to go into the ground. There's a lot of areas of generation 4 and generation 5 fermentation, which is going to be done in plants, in fields. These sorts of things still need large capital infrastructure. And, you know, I've seen a lot of startups hit a wall, even though they've raised maybe $100 million, they haven't been able to get the next big check to get to scale.
Please tell us what you do and then perhaps talk about what you see in this emerging trend.
Hi, everybody. I'm Shiri and I'm VP Marketing and Business Development for a startup called Incredo. We have a sugar reduction solution, and we actually use sugar to reduce sugar. We work with mass market brands to reduce sugar in their products by up to 50%. So it's a sugar-based sugar reduction solution. I think kind of from our perspective, I think the biggest change or what's important is regulators or governments driving front of pack labeling, educating consumers about what it is that they consume. You might argue, you know, sugar definitely is not something that you recommend, but it's everywhere. It's everywhere. It's in almost every single product. You go to supermarket shelves, everything has sugar in it. So we try to reduce it by half while keeping, you know, the taste, the texture, the mouthfeel of the products. We know that the #1 driver in food purchase decisions is actually taste. So if we're not going to meet that, all of this food is medicine. If we're not going to meet taste, it's going to remain niche. I think it has to be tasty. That's the issue that we see with, you know, a lot of the protein companies, alternative meat companies, where it's great, but it's, you know, the taste isn't quite there yet. And I think that is a big challenge, is you have to master that in order to get a wide adoption of products.
Thank you. And Giancarlo, go ahead, tell us what you do.
So, good morning, everybody. I am Giancarlo Addario. I'm principal at 5 Seasons Ventures. We are a venture capital fund based in Paris. We only invest in B2C brands in the food tech area. So what consumers perceive, what consumers want is core for us to understand. And we had a nice breakfast with Jaleh today. And then after the breakfast, I tried to take some notes to say, okay, what am I going to say about consumers? And it's a very crowded area. Food as a medicine is full of many verticals that are not that vertical. They are interconnected, a lot interconnected among themselves. And so I tried to memorize something. The first area of need is performance. Performance covers sport and active nutrition, which is already there since some years, and it keeps growing. So hydration is also some part of it. The healthy aging now is called longevity, so they are stretching the concept from healthy aging to longevity, and it's again about performance. So you want to stay, to keep your health in a better shape over time. The cognitive and mental health and the relaxation that is connected to it is also part of the performance. The second stream is female health, which again could be across other categories, and it's growing. We have a company in portfolio called Her1. They started with inner beauty, but now they are making the scope wider, going to a broader concept, a broader services and products around female health. The third part is metabolic health. You both mentioned it. That's the main. I think we're going to talk about it later on. It has been there for ages. It was. I like the idea from less sugar, less fat, to more of something that works, and also the more fibers, but also the more supplements that can help your metabolism to be better. Of course, GLP-1 drugs are disrupting this market, and we can build on that later on. Across all these categories, there is the immune and gut health. Because I see immune and gut health more like a set of enablers for the other categories rather than a real consumer need.
Okay, well, thank you. So I'm going to go back to the entrepreneur on the panel here and the lady who represents a company who's trying to make us healthier a little bit. Your technology, you talk about the exosomes that deliver therapeutic effects or help diseases, inflammatory diseases like in your case, the irritable bowel syndrome. Is your technology such that you can adapt it for other inflammatory diseases, or this one, when you use it, reduces the inflammation across many other illnesses like asthma and other allergies? Tell us a little bit about your technology.
Yeah, so what we see that it's true that our main, let's say, first target to penetrate is related to the gut inflammation. First of all, because there is an unmet need there, and as a startup, you need to find the unmet need. So we found it there. But this is only the start point. We know that the exosomes and the functionality is also helped cells like in the pancreas, and helps to in pre-diabetes and diabetes to the pancreas cells to perform better. So this is also related to the diabetes. And also longevity, we talk about, we know that most of the harmful that happen to our body in the age, it's not only exactly, it's inflammation in the cells. And on the overall, we know that exosomes are penetrating through the gut, but to other places at the body, and help the cells in other places also to perform better and to have more proliferation. Cytokines levels are balanced, and in that case, it's affect other cells, other processes in the cells, and can really promote longevity and other illnesses as well.
Yeah. So to Shiri and also you, since you are companies that facing consumers, trust and credibility of any company is basically the major factor for success if you're going to establish a brand. So you're doing a sugar, it's sugar, but it's physically altered so that it's less absorbed and it has presents lower calories to our bodies. So what do you do in your company to make sure that the consumer has the trust that actually they're going to see an effect, and the procedures that you're putting in place? And the other question I have of you specifically is, we hear about a lot of other sweeteners like monk fruit and all of that. We all know about it. How do you try to increase your market penetration? So 2 questions that you both can answer.
First of all, there are a lot of solutions, right? So monk fruit or stevia are there for zero sugar products. We are in fact sugar. Of course, you can use half of it. But the thing is with monk and stevia, and I think that's kind of one of our challenges, is that it tastes different. You might like it. You might think, chocolate with stevia is fantastic, but it doesn't taste the same as sugar. You might. It's not for everybody for sure, but it definitely is not the mass market. And it definitely tastes different. I think one of the challenges that we face is the fact that these claims have been overused. You see all these, products out there with zero sugar, with exactly the same taste. It has the same claims, and I think there we lost consumer trust when it says, a product with stevia tastes exactly the same as sugar, and then people try it, and then it doesn't. When a product like ours comes along, people are very skeptical. So if you were to say, this chocolate is reduced by 50% with Incredo sugar, the first thing that's going to come to a consumer's mind is, what is this? And I know it's not going to taste the same. They're going to be very skeptical. And I think that's a big challenge, is how do you educate consumers about the different types of sweeteners, and letting them know that these high-intensity sweeteners taste different. So I think that's a big one for us. We sell our sugar B2B, so it's really the brands that have to deal with it, but they come to us with these questions because it's been overused, and there have been over promises.
Yeah. Netta, in your case, you have to go over or through regulatory hurdles as well as other challenges that entrepreneurs have. So not only gaining the trust of the consumers, but you have to go through the regulatory process. So what are you doing to address these things? Are you at a stage where you are getting approval for your product?
Yeah, so the regulatory here is a tricky one. Because, yeah, our product is a self-GRAS firm, so we have a clearance from regulatory perspective. To gaining claims, we need to have some more clinical trials, but it's the matter as you explain the product. But again, it can be sold. The thing, there is a kind of a gap between the regulatory pathway of food supplements, for example, which is just, as you say, don't be a poison. That's it. Very simple. And if you can show that it's not poison, it's safe, with safety, you are there.
What we call GRAS, yeah.
Exactly. General recognized as safe. That's the only thing you need to do. But in our kind of product, it needs to do something, not only not to be poison, but do something good. Otherwise, you don't have any promise, and the promise is that you're doing something different, something good to your body. And for that, in order to prove that, you need to go preclinical studies, but also clinical studies, because in the end, our body is not exactly like cells or mice in the lab. And it's a costly process. You don't need to do it for regulatory, but you need to do it for consumers, for the trust. For either if you're sell the product directly to consumers or to B2B, and then they know how to sell it, but still you need the proofs. And I think this is something that it's a kind of a gap or a stage or challenge that you need to do. It's something that costs not a lot. You need to do it together with doctors in hospitals, and you need to prove it like a drug. But still, it's not a drug. But this is, for example, this is what we are doing.
A little example on this trust thing. One of my Couture Fund best investments is a company called Pendulum, and they make probiotics. And specifically, they make three things. They make a glucose control probiotic. They make a GLP-1 influencing probiotic that actually has a significant clinical impact. And they make Akkermansia, which is has great clinical benefits. Yeah. Now, they've done a bunch of clinical trials. They're a leading brand. They're, making tens of millions plus ARR. But what has happened, even though they've done the clinical trials and even though they've got the efficacy data, there's a whole bunch of other brands that have started to say, oh, we're at Akkermansia, we do exactly the same thing. And they actually had to buy samples from everywhere else, send them to somebody else's lab and get them analyzed. And out of 14 supplement brands all claiming Akkermansia, Pendulum was the only one that actually had Akkermansia in it. And the reason, of course, is Akkermansia is really hard to grow. Yeah. So they have an advantage. But the hoops they've had to go through to just restore trust. Right. Because then people are taking Akkermansia and it's not doing anything because there's no Akkermansia in it.
I'm one of those who buys these, tries these, I see no effect, and then I stop. Yeah.
I promise you,
the trust issue, credibility of the
differentiation between the good ones and and then do nothing ones.
Right.
This is the challenge that you have as a.
Right. So I want to switch to the investors. We have two great investors, very smart investors. Tell us a little bit about.
Only another 10, 15 years will tell us if that's true.
What is your IRR?
No, what is our DPI?
So tell us a little bit about the landscape, the funding landscape that we have in 2024. And more importantly, what do you see in 2025? Are we going to be out of this sort of slow motion that we are in? And what direction you see we are going? And how do funders like yourself and founders like this lady here, how do you best position yourself? Start with Giancarlo.
So the market after the COVID era was kind of crazy, I'd say. So we had very high valuations, very low risk assessment from investors. And so we had a lot of capital flowing around, but with less rationality, I'd say. After that, the market has changed dramatically on the opposite direction. So the investors have started to be overcautious. Companies have been striving to raise money.
And AI is sucking the oxygen out of the room for everything else, right?
Yeah, that's something for sure. Anyway, I see that the market is growing again. I don't really think that we will go back to the post-COVID era in terms. So probably there has been a kind of a self-regulation. So this is what I see in Europe. I'm curious to hear from US.
Well, we're a global fund, so we do Europe too. So if I look at our own SOSV capital raise, it was very slow last year and it was much more rapid this year. So that's a good sign. Interest rates are still high, which has sucked a lot more money out of VC than AI ever could. There's always something that sucks money out of VC, so that's irrelevant. Also, investing is always irrational, just as entrepreneurship is always irrational. I mean, you have to be too stupid to not know that you shouldn't be doing it to actually do either. You know, the pessimistic investors, maybe pension funds. So you've got to get the excitement. You know, if you're going to raise money as a founder in this environment, you've got to get the excitement. The other thing you've got to do is extend your runway. Yeah, having done $2 billion startups myself, there are definitely times in the cycle where you can't raise capital and you have got to cut your burn. And it's a very healthy thing. It's terrible losing people and cutting back, but actually often it makes you leaner, faster, better, healthier to do that. And it's the great excuse to do that and really take a hard look at, well, what do I really need to make this a success? And investors like to see that you have gone through and cut away anything that is not crystal clear, essential to getting to profitability. And, you know, in times like this, profitability is a very interesting word. Like the time to that inflection point is more reassuring to investors than in other times where it's time to hypergrowth. And there's also a flavor investor.
So you're looking carefully at the revenue stage of the companies that you're investing in. Is that the same case for you, Giancarlo?
We are looking at revenues, but we also are looking at hypergrowth, being a B2C fund. So the main difference between ourselves is if you invest in biotech, if you invest in deep tech, then you must be much more solid. If you invest in at the end of the supply chain, then you can put the money, you can support the company as it grows fast and until it becomes profitable. So profitability is still an issue, of course. The model has to be scalable. That is the rationality that we need to have, not to be afraid of investing. You must be excited. I totally agree with you. However, you need to see that the model can actually scale if you put money into it.
Yeah.
Sometimes it didn't happen in the past.
Yeah, so
Yeah, you can have hypergrowth and die.
Yeah, right.
Right? It's much harder to die if you're profitable.
Yeah. So I want to go back to something that was brought up earlier, and I want to pick up on that, maybe expand it a little bit. The biome and the gut health, which is so tied to your actually mental and mind, body and mind concept. Are you really doing a lot of microbiome investments, or are you doing other things that support that kind of line of thinking? What are you doing in that area?
Oh, we're doing a lot of stuff. I think one really interesting area is psychedelic medicines. And a lot of psychedelic medicines are actually at very low doses, like way lower dose than a psychedelic effect, or you couldn't even feel it, are actually food-safe molecules that have clinical trial after clinical trial is showing that they have positive influence. And they've been used for thousands of years.
Yeah.
So a lot of them should be generally regarded as safe. Smoothing out sugar highs, again, a huge mental impact. There's a whole bunch of other supplementation, a bunch of balances that you can have that will change. I think at the moment magnesium is kind of having its day, but actually the kind of magnesium you take makes a very big difference to whether you get good sleep, and good sleep has an enormous difference to your mental state. So there is a huge area of things, and just in the area of, again, psychedelics, looking at progressive dosing, which is the way these things were traditionally used, as opposed to the kind of macho, let's see how much of this thing I can take. There's a huge difference in when you have things like food as medicine, taking very little doses over time of a whole range of things that can change your gut-brain connection. There's also quite a lot of studies on different microbial interventions. So like Sun Genomics, which is one of our other companies, is doing clinical trial that's targeting autism and very early stage autism, and changing the gut-brain pathway very early. So there's just a ton of exciting stuff.
Okay.
Some of it is consumer.
I can add that we know that the microbiome population is working indirectly to other organ on the body, and we know also, again, from our studies, that also exosomes have influence on the microbiome population in the gut. So not only direct on our cells, but also on the different population, and this is promoting also indirectly different changes. So this is, again, the microbiome is very sophisticated and very important.
My dear panelists, sorry to interrupt.
We are getting close. I want to ask one quick question and then ask the audience to pose any questions they have. Ozempic and GLP-1s. As Paul Benjamin said, 20% of the people that are obese are going to be using the 80% of the supply of Ozempics that is available right now. What do you think, quickly, what is the impact of this Ozempic and similar drugs in the space that you are working in?
Well, it's really difficult to know what the future impact is going to be, because once you get on the drug, you can't really get off it. I'm excited about Pendulum's GLP-1 microbes, because that's a much softer, gentler, long-term solution. GLP-1 currently accounts for nearly 3/4 of the GDP of Denmark. So they're not going away anytime soon.
Yeah. So, Giancarlo, what is...
Natural substitution, berberine microbiome substitution complements. So how do you need to feed yourself while you are... And after, of course, Ozempic phase. Have you ever heard about the Ozempic phase? So you need to actually nurture yourself properly. And after that, when you quit with the drug, you need to go back to a good diet, not to an unbalanced diet. Right. So
and
these are the three areas.
Mental well-being, which is also questioning about...
Of course. So these are the challenges and also the opportunities for the food space.
Okay, I think we need to open for questions. Anybody has any question for any
Yes.
member of the panels.
We are behind time, but we will allow for one question. So do make sure in the panels that come later that you leave those 5 minutes for the Q&A, actually, engaging as the discussion may be. One question from the audience who would like to be the very first one in the audience to ask the very first question.
By the way, I think Ozempic is going to affect corn futures.
Well, when you say once you get on a drug, you can't really get off it, sounds ominous enough, doesn't it? Anyone?
Go on, be brave. Ask a question.
Come on, just one.
We do bite.
No questions. So
I'll ask you a question. I'll do it. We have this conundrum. You are engaged in companies that are consumer facing. What I'm reading is that Gen Zs, there is a gap between say and eat. They say one thing, they eat another thing. How is that going to affect your companies, whether it's a portfolio company or whether it's your own company?
I think snackification and girl dinners is actually quite a big thing because it points to just how exhausted people are. You know, they want the easy solution.
They do.
So, you know, that's something that I think if you're having to do extra effort, that's not something that they're up for anymore, and maybe not even able to afford too, which is the other thing. You know, inflation's hit pretty hard.
I think it's then, in the end, kind of the generation of cut the bullshit. So say what you are.
If for the win.
Kind of, yeah. It's a generation that want to trust. They were looking for something very honest and not greenwash and claims that are not something behind them. And I think that will set the differentiation between brands and solutions that are not real or doing nothing than to the one that are having something science behind them. I hope so, that will give the change, the wind for the change.
Okay, well, I think we are just on 0, 0, 0.
Perfect. If I may just have...
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
If I may just have one request for the moderator. It's not going to be a question, but a light-hearted risk management request. There's a glass right next to your leg. Be careful with that. Thank you so very much for a very engaging opening discussion of the day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.